The Wellness Show, Episode 11.
Welcome to The Wellness Show, a podcast on health and wealth. I'm your host, Tyson Bannigan, the founder of the Extraordinary Healing Arts Academy. Join me as we get the latest insight, tips, and strategies from wellness providers, coaches, and successful, heart-centered entrepreneurs, and much, much more. So welcome to The Wellness Show, and I'm excited today to have on the call today Dave Smith, and he's in the fitness profession. So Dave, what is it that you're doing, and how are you unique?
We're starting off with the big questions. I like that.
Yeah,
Thanks
right.
for having me on the show. Yeah, so I'm a wellness coach, but I really specialize in helping people through the process of health behavior change, building habits that are going to help them get the results they're looking for.
Wow, that's awesome. So what are some of those habits?
Well, it really depends on anyone. For most of my clients, we're looking at weight loss, and I use this psychological approach. It's 5 stages that basically takes people from a state where they're not really looking to change to realizing that they should change and getting prepared to change, taking action, that whole bit. So most people, we start with very, very simple things, just little diet tweaks. For example, this sounds like something your mom probably said, but eating a good breakfast and just establishing what that a good breakfast looks like.
Hey, I like you already because it means that you're not going to give me a big agenda to change my life. You're going to come and meet me where I am and help me make the next step. That's what I'm hearing from you. So you're willing to work with anybody wherever they are.
Well, yeah, that's true. And, I was a personal trainer for about 16 years. And, personally, I saw my own clients do this, come in, especially this time of year. We got New Year's here, and people who have never exercised before will show up and they'll say, "Hey, Dave, I want to start exercising 7 days a week. I'm so excited." And I very quickly learned those people have a 0% chance of following through on that. And it needs to be broken down into very small, sequential, attainable steps. It's the only way it works.
Well, it sounds like it's something that's doable. You also, on the precursor to this call, you were mentioning that you're a coach, and I got fascinated because it seems to me, if you're a business coach, that those are some of the integrative steps that you want to take your client through too. You don't want to scare them about the fact that they got to make a big quantum jump in their business, even though they may, at the beginning of the year, have a New Year's resolutions like fitness. Hey, I want to double, triple, quadruple, 10x my business. So Dave, hey, how do I do that? It sounds like you'd have the same sort of strategy for the business as well.
Yeah, definitely. And, probably the biggest step in all that is determining what your motivation is. And that crosses over so many different areas of life, but health and wellness for sure. And then business as well. And I know you're a business coach too, so you've probably seen that. What is your motivation or what's your impetus to change? That's got to be foundational.
Yeah, absolutely. So what's that question you ask people when they come to you? What's the first question that you're going to get out?
Well, so from a fitness perspective, most of my clients, like I said, are interested in weight loss. So when I'm doing an intake with a new client, I'll always say, okay, what can I help you with? And usually the response is, I need to lose weight. And I've learned that that's not a satisfactory answer. So I'll always follow that up with, okay, how will that make your life better? And then usually the process is quite a long drawn out process, and it'll go something like, they'll say, well, I want to feel better about myself. And that's still just it's not a very real answer. I don't think they've drilled down. So I'll say that same question again. It gets pretty annoying. I'll say, well, how will that make your life better? And then they'll say, well, if I felt better about myself, then I would be able to go out and socialize more. And they're getting a little closer, but well, how does that make your life better? Well, if I could socialize more, I would I've had people actually, a client recently said, I want to go to business networking events, but I don't feel confident in the way I look. Okay, well, if you go to those business networking events, how does that make your life better? Well, I want to meet other people who are in business. How does that make your life better? And then basically we went through this process, probably like 12 or 15 of these layered questions. And eventually the person came out and said, my business in 2015 was really struggling. And I realized that I need to connect with other people who are in business. But the way that I feel about myself is preventing me from doing that.
Wow, I love that. I love that. You're like a life coach. But the exciting thing about that is you're not marketing yourself as a life coach, because people wouldn't get who you are and what it is that you're doing. So that's brilliant. So this crossover, I mean, people have told me, the gurus in the business of coaching, hey, you can't be a wellness coach and a business coach at the same time. It's mixed messages, but somehow you're doing this. How do you do that? Do you have two different, do you keep the clientele separately? How do you bring those two worlds together?
Well, yeah, I'll give you a little backstory. Originally, I didn't intend to be a business coach. My background educationally is in marketing,
Mm-hmm.
but my passion was always fitness. And so I applied my business knowledge to the fitness world. And really early on, within a couple of years of my business really growing, I noticed I started to have people who were clients of mine who own their own business saying, hey, I saw what you're doing, particularly online. My specialty is online business. Can you help me do that with my business? And I just saw, okay, there's definitely a need here. People get to know me, through the health coaching, trust me, and then want to apply that. So I have a lot of crossover between clients, but I have two separate businesses. So I try and keep them as separate as possible, but it just doesn't always happen that way.
Well, that's really fascinating, because I've sort of somewhere in the middle. I call it, Tyson Bannigan business and wellness coaching and mentoring. But I haven't kept them separate. But you're absolutely right; they're two different flows. But it seems to me that this is really a new niche that needs to be worked on and articulated, because I am sure, and correct me if I'm wrong. So from your experience, have you found that when you do this, when you help a business person get more clear from the fitness perspective, that their business starts to take off? Is that your experience?
Oh, like without a doubt, without a
Yeah.
doubt. One of the biggest objections that I try and overcome with clients that I work with from a health perspective is no time. And everyone says that I have no time. But the reality is, when you make that time, then your energy goes up, your ability to take on more work goes up. So your capabilities just exponentially grow when you take care of yourself. But I know that's a hard thing for people to believe until they've experienced it. So that's the tricky part.
So how do you help them believe that? I mean, it took me a long time for me to come to Jesus moment, to realize I had to do this for myself, right? That there was no other way to do this but to get up every morning at an early hour and do something about this, whether it's, my 45-minute walk, or whether it's doing the 5 Tibetan rites, or whatever it is. I just got to do it. And if I don't, I have about a week and then my energy starts to crash. So how do you motivate your clients to put this part of their ongoing life skills?
Well, actually, I love what you just said, because you shared a personal example. So that's very real to you. And no one can argue with that. When you have an anecdote that you've experienced in your own life, how can someone say that that's not true? So that's where I began. Actually, my personal story is when I was working in corporate marketing, I went through a period of really bad health. Mine was exhaustion. So my favorite story to tell people is I was in a conference call at work and fell asleep on the phone.
Oh my goodness.
And I didn't wake up until I started to actually drool on the receiver of the phone, and that
Uh-oh.
woke me up.
Uh-oh.
And I just realized there's something wrong. I was young. I was, early 20s. That should not be the case. And that really propelled me to, I was already exercising at the time, but it really propelled me to start to examine my diet and
Uh-huh.
study diet and the correlation between diet and energy levels. And since I switched my diet, actually, sorry, a precursor to that was I saw probably 7 specialists who were supposed to help me from a medical standpoint. And I was prescribed drugs, and I had sleep tests done and all this different, very medical approach, and nothing, it didn't work. I ended up being on prescription drugs and still felt like crap. And then as I started to change my diet, I eliminated the drugs, felt great, and it was a game changer. So, that personal experience, I can tell people, like, this stuff works. It
Yeah,
just
that's the
does.
power of that personal experience. So tell me, I mean, I'm fascinated too. I had to change my diet too. I mean, I had a public
Mhm.
health nurse come here when I was like 60 and gave me a full medical and said, hey, this is, likelihood of a heart attack and all the rest of this. I said, whoa, I'm doing physical stuff, blah, blah. I went to my doctor and he looked at it out and he looked over and he says, she's absolutely right. So that was my moment of, hey, what are you going to do about this? So how do you, with that, like, for you, for me, the diet thing was really important. The first thing I had to do was cut my food intake by 50%. And then I had to change my diet absolutely completely. I went from becoming a full vegetarian. So from your personal point of view, what did you have to do to get your energy back from the food that you ate?
Yeah, I learned a pivotal lesson, and I write about this all the time in different magazines because I really want people to hear this message,
Yeah.
is that your diet has to be focused on what you're eating, not what you're not eating.
Right.
And to explain that, so I would have thought, this was 15 years ago when I was going through these health issues. If someone had asked me, what's your diet like? I would have said, oh, I've got the cleanest diet possible because, I avoid saturated fats, I don't eat junk food. But when I started to evaluate what am I actually feeding my body, it was a ton of processed grains. I had a ton of bread products, a ton of low fat products that are actually very low nutrient products. And so I'd thrown off my circadian rhythm. All my hormonal levels were thrown off by all this fake food that I was eating, even though on the label you could look at the macronutrients. Okay, protein, fat, and carbohydrates. Yeah, those look great. There's not a lot of sugar. But in reality, the nutrient content was awful.
Well, that's a minefield that you just opened up, as the whole package of labeling GMO. Wow, I mean, for the average person, Joe and Martha average, that's crazy making. I mean, how do you even go to a store and figure this out? I know for myself that I had the same thing. I was eating, the best organic meat, and I was, shopping locally and, 100 Mile and microbiotic. I mean, I was doing it all, growing my own food, but I still was, close to a heart attack. So it's even more than that. Like you say, it's really, really getting aware of your own personal rhythms. So you said this circadian rhythm, or how it sounds like crickets. Tell me about that rhythm. What are you talking about there?
Yeah, like your body has it's called a circadian rhythm, and basically it's a sleep-wake cycle.
Right.
And if we removed all other, environmental factors, including food, generally people start to get tired, around 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night. And then your body starts to slowly shut down your metabolism and slow down, the internal workings of your body. So you can fall into a deep sleep sometime after midnight. You'll be in your deepest level of sleep.
Right.
But then your body starts to come up out of that. And naturally around 6 a.m. we wake up, and then our energy picks up throughout the day, and it just goes through this cycle. But a huge problem today is because we have so many of these environmental factors that are stimulating energy for very short periods of time, flow is thrown off. So the prime example is people wake up, say at 6 a.m. First thing they do is they drink a cup of coffee. And I know there's probably a lot of coffee drinkers out there who are going to like to hear this. But it gives your body this huge unnatural spike of energy, which trains your body to not need that natural circadian rhythm energy. And the same thing is very true with processed foods. If you eat some processed bread, for example, that's converted into blood sugar very quickly. Blood sugar, again, it's this huge spike, and our body has to do something with that. And in most cases, people aren't very physically active during the day to reduce that blood sugar. It stores it as fat. And then we have an energy crash, which, again, I'm sure a lot of us out there experience that mid-morning energy crash. And what do people do when they get that energy crash? They drink a cup of coffee or eat something sweet. And then you can see how instead of that nice smooth rhythm, you get a very spiky flow.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm still working my way through the green smoothie for this morning. So
Good choice.
I do understand. I mean, but I have to confess, I did start with my cup of coffee, and it ain't too small. However, I did get a full glass of water in first. So, I'm
Excellent.
training myself. So give us an idea of what your morning ritual is like when it comes to food and exercise.
Yeah, for sure. I'm very regimented. So I wake up and will eat something very small carbohydrate. So usually a piece of fruit. I'll usually eat a small apple, and then I'm immediately out the door to exercise. And reason small apple beforehand is, I think most people could relate to this, that you eat a big meal before you exercise, and generally your stomach doesn't feel great.
Right.
Whereas a carbohydrate it spikes your blood sugar, but
Yeah.
that's okay when you're about to go and exercise. So that's what I'm looking for, is a little energy boost. Go and exercise, and then come back, and then green smoothie, just like you, green smoothie to start the day. And that's a perfect way to start the day.
All right. So what do you do for exercise? I mean, that doesn't get boring, repetitive. I don't want to do this anymore. What sort of things do you do for yourself? Do you mix it up? Do you go to the gym? Do you go for walks? What do you do?
Yeah, like I can tell you what I do, but I just want to emphasize the fact that, what I do isn't going to be right for someone else. So it's all about finding something that you enjoy doing.
Uh,
For me,
Absolutely. Absolutely. You got to love what you're doing. So I'm just curious, what do you love doing? Because I think it will be an inspiration for other people to discover, and maybe with your help, about what they would love to do, what would get them up, what would get them revitalized, what would get them beyond their morning cup of coffee and do something that's good for them, right?
yeah, totally. And, I'll tell you that what I like to do is actually had to change a lot. So I used to be a big time athlete and had two very serious knee injuries and these big time operations to fix my knee.
Wow.
And that basically cut out all kinds of activity that I love doing. So I had to reinvent myself over the last couple of years. So I last year taught myself how to swim, and I do some running and biking. So I compete in triathlons. So that's the type of training that I do now.
Hmm.
And a little bit of weight training as well, but primarily swim, bike, run. That's my routine.
Great. So all you people out there, don't get scared. I mean, we can make this work for you. You don't have to be training for the triathlon. You can just be training for your day. So yeah, I'm really excited the fact that you can show up for people and take them from where they are to where they want to go. That sounds awesome. And I just love your exuberance. I would hire you as a personal trainer if I needed one, because I just feel that you embody that aspect, that you're living that energy. So when it comes to helping people with diet, what do you do there? Like, do you do some sort of assessment with them? Do you help them go through what it is that they do eat in an average day and make some recommend? What do you do in that area?
Yeah, and I know this is going to sound a little bit scary, but I'm a big believer in the scientific method. Creating a hypothesis, testing the hypothesis, and then taking action based on the results, because there is no one size fits all diet plan. So
Absolutely.
generally the process would be eliminating reactive foods, so highly inflammatory foods, just because the vast majority of people will see results by doing so. So, for example, I talked a lot about processed grains, so reducing processed grains. But then, like I said, well, you got to think about what are you going to fill that space with. So introducing, some non-processed grains, even, rice or quinoa, and there's all kinds of different bread products even that are just less processed than the typical, wheat or whole wheat variety. So generally start there. And it's amazing. If you cut out processed grains, reduce dairy, cut out alcohol, and cut out sugar. If you can do those things, and then I know this sounds like a lot of steps, but reduce those 4 areas and then start to focus on eating vegetables at each meal. And that's why I loved when you held up your green smoothie, because you got your veggies first thing in the morning. It's low calorie, high nutrient. You're not going to get that blood sugar crash. If you can do that, the vast majority of people, their life will be drastically changed.
Yeah, I love what you're saying. And it's really what J.J. Virgin is saying in one of her books that I happen to crash read, and that is, the 5 things that you just pointed out. Her 5 may be a little bit different, but the point is, eliminate those one at a time and then bring them back in after 30 days of not having them in their diet, and you'll see the results, particularly when it comes to grains. Just take them out of your diet for 30 days and then bring them back in, and whoa, all of a sudden, you understand what that's been doing to your body, and you're not going to want to do that anymore. So yeah, your rational approach makes perfect sense to me. Prove it to yourself. That's the way to do this. So is that what you're talking about when you're talking about the scientific methodology?
Oh, totally. You said it very, very eloquently, actually. Take it out and see what happens to your body.
Yeah.
And, for some people, dairy is a good example, because some people can do well on dairy.
Yeah, absolutely.
But most people think they do way better on it, and then take it out, and all of a sudden their stomach's not full of gas and bloating, and all of a sudden their digestion is just, through the roof, and they think, okay, I'm going to keep dairy out, or at least minimize it.
Yeah, and of course, having come from one of the last two raw milk dairy farms in British Columbia, you
Mm.
know, the difference between raw milk and healthy milk compared to processed milk. I mean, they're two, well, we don't need to go there, but processed milk is absolutely dead and inert and probably should have nothing to do with anything that has to do with your body. I mean, it's just, well, anyway, I'm going to get on a rant there, so I'll get off there right away. But yeah, the closer we are to natural products, the better off. So I absolutely agree with you. So that makes perfect sense to me. For those that are on the call and you're looking at the possibility of a green smoothie, I want to share this one site. And I know this is not about me. This is about you, the person listening to the show. But www.therawfamily.com has got awesome recipes on there. And when you're on that site, take a look at the videos, because you'll see that a raw diet with smoothie has changed so many different disorders and diseases from, I don't know, anything you can imagine. And in as less time as 3 weeks on green smoothies, your blood sugar balances out, all sorts of things. So you owe it to yourself, everybody out there listening. Try a green smoothie. It'll only maybe one a day, but hey, I'm back on my soapbox. But truly, it will change your life. So anyway, back to you. That was my little rant there.
No, if I can say something, I'd like to support that, because, you know, when I said people's objections to eating healthy, usually it's a time thing, and then quite often it's a taste thing.
Yeah.
You can't make a faster breakfast than a green smoothie, and you can't make a better tasting breakfast than some of the recipes.
Right, and I attest to that. So I'll have a drink right now.
Can you tell us what's in your green smoothie right now?
Actually, I can. I'm so spoiled, but I know that I'm fortunate in that I grow a lot of my own vegetables. So I've created a greenhouse. So one of my beautiful, loving plants that grows all the way through the year, even though it's freezing to death out in the greenhouse now, and it doesn't really grow. It's like this, waiting for the spring, is kale. So the basic fundamental basis of most of my smoothies is kale. The fact that the kale has so much energy, it loves me so dearly, that will grow in my greenhouse in the middle of the winter when it shouldn't be, to me is enough energy that I just want it inside of me, because it's put that extra effort out. I know that sounds crazy, but I love my vegetables. I grow my vegetables. My vegetables and me are one as much as possible. So, you know, my garden is special for me, and I don't have enough time to be in the garden. In fact, why don't I just say it right here? I'm going to make a New Year's resolution, which I don't do, to spend more time in my garden with my vegetables and watch them grow. Because the more I do that, the more energy that they give to me. So anyway, that's my story. So yeah, kale's a big part. It's 1/3 fruit and 2/3 green veggies, right? So that gives you a bit of a...
That's a good...
Yeah.
I really like that balance, because that is the only danger of green smoothies is you can pack a wallop of calories in there if it becomes, you know, 90% fruit. You could throw pineapple, all that stuff in there, and then throw in a couple spinach leaves and call it a green smoothie. And I'm not sure that's the same thing.
You're going to have a huge sugar rush and a big crash at the other end, right?
Exactly.
Wow. So this is exciting. I find it exciting. So take this back over to business just for one more go around on that, and taking these strategies into the business world. So how do you do these sorts of things for a business person?
Yeah, like I said, my specialty is online marketing. So I consider myself an online marketer, to be honest, more than I do even a personal trainer these days. So from a business strategist standpoint, I try and drive as much traffic to my site as possible. And generally I do that. I spend a lot of time writing. I write for a lot of magazines, a lot of different websites online that just sort of builds up my personal brand recognition and gets eyeballs on my site. And then the most important thing that I've learned about online business is give away some of your very best stuff 100% for free. And it does two things. One, it captures people's emails so that you can communicate with them. But even more importantly, you've heard it before, people do business with people who they know, they like, and they trust.
Hey,
so I need that opportunity.
So the thing is that I've found is the whole integrity is a big thing when it comes to being an online marketer and writing copy like you are. And it sounds like you're emerging as a wizard in copywriting and doing blogs and getting your brand out there and getting your name, which is, like you say, is a common name. So you got to stand out in a big way. And it sounds to me like you're doing that. How do you deal with the integrity issue? I think that's a big one. I know when I did when I went and did my mastermind with Christian Michelson, who's a leading coach in the profession, that I just felt nothing personal, Christian, but I just felt out of integrity with the copy that I was being told I needed to write. So how do you, I know that I can feel your integrity. So how do you do that alignment between your copy and you so that you resonate at the right frequency?
I love that question, actually. And it's very applicable to where I'm at. So about 6 months ago, I actually hired a business coach to help me with my copywriting.
Yeah.
And it was interesting because she helped me change dramatically to the point where sales were definitely increasing, but it wasn't my voice. And I just didn't feel good about what I was putting out there, even though it was good from a business perspective. And I've since completely dropped from her is that people want an inside perspective of who they're dealing with. So my approach to copy is to share my life, and sometimes to be very personal, maybe even uncomfortably so, but, share what it is that I'm up to, share about how health is impacting my life and the clients that I'm working with. And, might not make me millions and millions of dollars doing that strategy. Maybe I can make more money being more persuasive, but it is an integral approach, I think. And I think people appreciate it.
It took me, I'm 70 years old, and it took me forever to figure this out. And here you are at your age figuring this all out. So I commend you. You are your brand. You are the integrity. And when you bare your soul to your client and let them be on the inner part of you, like what are you struggling with? What are you figuring out? Where are you? And, the soft underbelly, when you let them see that, they're going to love you. Mm-hmm. They're going to love you, and they're going to be there for you, and your business is going to go through the roof. So again, I really love the fact that you're a risk taker. You're going to put it all out there. You're going to fly your flag no matter what, and the world be darned. They're just going to either catch up or they're not part of your tribe. So look, we're getting close to the end of the show, and I could spend hours talking to you because I love it. So tell people, how do they get hold of you? How do they get to work with you?
Yeah, like my main website is called makeyourbodywork.com. And that's where you can, see all about the fitness side of things I do. And you can contact me through that website if you have a business question or want to chat business as well. And on that website, you'll find a podcast. So I do a weekly podcast as well that's focusing all about living simply, and living happier. So if you're interested in any of those three things, you can check out the podcast.
It sounds great. It was such a pleasure to have you on the show. I'm going to want to have you back. So when you're ready to launch your next product, your next your next, step that you want to take people on, I want you to come back on the show, and I want you to showcase you to help you do your next launch. So until then, it's been incredible, a pleasure to have you on, to play with you, to share ideas. So let's wrap it up here. And thank you very much, Dave Smith, for showing up.
My pleasure. It was a great time, and I'd love to come back anytime you like.
All right, then. Take care.
Thank you.
For quality online wellness products, courses, and services, visit our sponsors, thewellnessstore.ca and the Extraordinary Healing Arts Academy located at thewellnessacademy.ca. To stay in touch, visit us at thewellnessshow.ca. And until next time, be healthy, wealthy, and wise.